Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing something that I haven't done in a while, which is canning. I'm going to make some grape jelly for the first time. Once I finish the jelly, I definitely want to make sure that I get the pantry organized because it's a disaster. Hold on. Can you see it? A bit, but it's terrible. So I want to make sure that I get that done. That's what's on the agenda today. Last time I canned jelly, okay, to be clear, I've only canned like 3 times in my life, but last time I did, it was strawberry jelly, jam. And the difference between jelly and jam is jam has seeds, jelly doesn't. So I'm just gonna use store-bought grape juice to make jelly, and then I'm gonna water bath can it. I'm actually starting with a clean kitchen today, so it's really exciting and I'm really proud of it. My mom has helped me, Eric has helped me, and my son is sleeping. My siblings are at the park with my daughter, so it's super quiet and it feels really strange because the sun is out and everything just feels right. I'm excited. I washed the jars in hot soapy water and the lids and rings, and then I'm gonna set them on a towel to dry. The first thing I'm gonna do is separate my sugar and pre-measure it so that when I don't have to measure it on the fly while the juice is boiling. I'm gonna be using this Sure Gel pectin. This is the low or no sugar pectin, and it just calls for less sugar than the traditional, and it has some measurements on the back of the box but not for what I'm making. So I just looked up online the recipe for the grape jelly with the low sugar pectin, and we're going to be following this. I'll link it in the description in case you want to try it out. Hopefully it turns out well. I'll obviously let you know. Like I said, I'm going to pre-measure my sugar into a bowl, and then we're going to add our pectin to a portion of the sugar. So we'll have 2 bowls, 1 bowl of just sugar, 1 bowl of pectin and sugar, and we need 5.5 cups of grape juice. And then you can also add ½ tablespoon of butter to reduce the foam on your jelly or jam, but I don't really mind the foam. It's mostly for aesthetic purposes, so if it foams up a little bit, that's okay. This recipe calls for 3.5 cups of sugar, of white sugar. So I'm just gonna, I have a ½ cup measure, so I'm gonna do 7 into this bowl. Okay, I'm just gonna wipe down the counter and throw it on the floor because I'm gonna clean the floor later. So what we need to do is take 1/4 cup of the sugar and put it to the side in this bowl. And then we're gonna put that over there while we add our Sure Gel gelatin to, or pectin, not gelatin, to our bowl. And I'm just gonna stir it together, try to mix it a little bit. Now that we have everything ready that we need to have ready, we can take this party to the stove. I'm gonna measure out 5.5 cups of juice. And then I'm gonna put it in this pot here. I'm also gonna use this pot to water bath can in, so once I get all the jelly out of it into the jars, I need to wash it. So I'm going to put this on medium heat, and we're going to add our pectin and sugar to this juice, and then we're going to bring it up to a boil, and we're going to want it to be at a rolling boil, which means you can't stir away any bubbles. While this comes to a boil, I'm going to make sure I can find my canning funnel, and if I have my grabber thingies, I'm going to grab those too, and make sure I wash the funnel. Well, I found my funnel, but I can't find the canning tongs to grip it, to pick it up, so I'll just have to use a hot pad or something. I just want to make sure that I'm stirring it periodically so that nothing scorches or gets stuck to the bottom. I just put put my jelly mixture into a smaller pan because I didn't really need that giant pot, but I will need that giant pot to can in later on, and I need to put the water to boil, so hopefully I don't regret switching it over, but I'm pretty sure this pot is going to be plenty big for what we need it for. Put my pot of water on to boil. I'm gonna can my jelly in 1/2 pints. So this is already starting to thicken up. It's starting to steam, so I know we're gonna be at a boil here soon. While I'm waiting for that though, I'm just gonna put a garbage bag in the garbage can so that I'm not tempted just to throw my trash on the counter. And while I was down there, I just grabbed the soap. So I'm just gonna fill up our soap thingy. My camera is about to overheat. Okay, I hope you can see me. My camera overheated, so I have to use a phone. This is taking a while, but I don't want to walk away from it because I know it'll burn. And someone warned me about having my wood cutting board on the gas range, and I get it, but this isn't even hot. It's not anywhere near the flame. And I don't light this side with it under it. It just adds like a little bit of extra counter space for me, kind of. So I'm safe with it. It'll be okay. And on the off chance I burn my house down, then you can tell me I told you so. You can start to see some bubbling here. See it? There we go. But once you stir it, they all go away. So once you can stir it and then still see the bubbles while you're stirring it, you know you're good to add your sugar. The rest of it, the 3 1/4 cups. Okay, so we're finally at the point where when I stir it, it still is bubbling, and these bubbles are not going away while I stir it. Now we can add the rest of our sugar slowly, because this is very hot liquid and you definitely don't want to burn yourself. So adding our sugar is going to drop the temperature of this liquid. So we're going to wait, we're going to stir this in, make sure that the sugar gets all dissolved. It needs to come back up to that rolling boil and stay there for 1 minute. And then once that 1 minute is up, we can add it to our jars. So 1/4 inch of headspace, and then add your lids and rings, put it in the canner. Even just adding the sugar, the resistance in here, it's so much thicker, the liquid is, so I hope that this will set up. The way that you can test if your jam or jelly is going to set up is take a little bit of it, put it on a plate, and then put it in your fridge or freezer. You can see the consistency, whether or not it firms up. I'm pretty sure this is going to be fine considering how thick it is already, but you never know, so I will definitely test it. But when I'm stirring this, I can still see like little clumps of sugar come to the top. So you really just want to make sure that your sugar is all the way mixed in before you stop stirring. If you stop stirring at all, because if you walk away from it at this point, you're not likely to have very good results. Okay, so I'm back up to a boil now. I'm just gonna set my timer for 1 minute, just so I know. I'm not very good at eyeballing time. So that was 1 minute, and I'm just gonna take it off the heat. I'm gonna move it over so that it doesn't burn on the bottom from still being on the hot element. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that you need 1/4 inch of headspace, and what headspace just means is the space from the top of the lid to the top of your product in the jar. When you buy like a canning kit, usually they come with a jar lifter and a measuring tool to measure your headspace and a funnel. But the only thing I could find was my funnel, so I just used a ruler off camera to kind of gauge what a 1/4 inch looked like on each one and tried to get it as close as I could. They're not exact, but I felt confident in the fact that they would be safe. I did try to skim off some of the foam or the bubbles or the skin of the jelly with a fork. It didn't come off a lot of it, but I found that it didn't really matter anyways because once I put it in the canner, after they came out, it was gone. Like it kind of just redissolved. So that was kind of useless, but just make sure that you're wiping your rims really well and you don't have anything that would inhibit your seal. And you want to make sure you're using a clean and new lid every time. And then put a ring on it and then put it in your canner. And then I put a towel down that I had used to like let my jars dry on because you don't want the jars sitting on the bottom of the pot because there's a chance that they could break if they're like just sitting directly on the pot because it gets pretty hot. Once my jars were in the pot of water and coming up to a boil, I just took a break to let them come up to a boil and then I started cleaning up and washing the dishes that I had used throughout the process. I let those process for 5 minutes and then I took them out and then I actually had to leave. So I just turned the stove off and like let them pressure or like let them cool down a little bit before I tried to take them out of the pot. The reason I did that is because I couldn't find my jar lifter and I didn't have any way to take them out of the pot. And you really don't want to turn your jars if possible. So I wasn't going to dump it out or anything. So I just let them sit until the water was a comfortable temperature that I could take them out safely. And then I went ahead and just cleaned up. I put some of the jelly in the fridge on a plate like I told you, and we're gonna see what the texture is gonna turn out like. So this is what it looks like. Ooh, nice. It's good. It's really good. It tastes like really good grape jelly. It doesn't taste like the kind that you get from the store. It just tastes like thick grape juice, which is what it is. I had just a tiny bit left over and I put it in this measuring cup and you can see that the consistency is going to be pretty perfect. We're not up to a boil quite yet. So while that's heating up, I'm going to get the rest of the dishes that I used cleaned and in the dishwasher, and then we can start on the pantry. I might take a tiny break in between, but you won't be able to tell. Our jelly has finally come up to a boil. I am going to set my timer for 5 minutes. And then once this is done, I'm just going to turn it off and let them sit in the jars for a little bit so that the temperatures can kind of, or the pressure or whatever, the temperature can kind of regulate a little bit and we don't crack our jars by setting them down. Once we take them out, I'm going to set them here on the counter on a towel so that they don't hit the cold counter. And then we're just going to let them sit for 24 hours, take the rings off, and then store them. I prefer to use these dissolvable labels on my jars over just writing directly on the jar lid because I like to reuse these jar lids for other things that aren't canning related, but if I'm storing something in a jar and I like to put a lid on it, then it doesn't need to be a new lid. So, but if it has something on it, then it's harder to distinguish, or I just don't like the look of crossing it out. So you can see that the jelly is really beautiful and it's clear on the top. You can't really see any foam or anything. And those are ready to go into the pantry. What I needed to handle next was the actual pantry, because this had not been organized since we moved in. I kind of has just took all the food that I had from my previous pantry shelf and put it in here when we moved in. And then as we've gotten new food throughout the couple months, it just kind of gets pushed in here as well. We still have like a little bit of remnants from other things that are like partially opened and they just needed to be gone through, and some stuff needed to be tossed. I started by taking everything out of the pantry and putting it on the counter so that I could work through it as I was able to, as well as clean it off and wipe down each shelf. And I had this container that I refilled with rice, and then I started putting the cans back. I knew that I wanted to keep all of my canned goods on this middle shelf because it's easiest to see and access, and so I use them the most. It's mostly what I have. My husband doesn't really love pasta, so we don't usually have pasta that much. And so when I was putting things back in here, I mostly just started with the cans, and that kept it kind of manageable for me and less overwhelming. And then I moved on to boxed stuff, which isn't going to be for everyone. Some people are going to want it to be more laid out and everything kind of single file and in one line, but that's just not really how my brain works and how it is appealing to me. So I kind of just I put everything back in an organized way that would work for my brain. And that's the amazing thing about organizing is that you can figure out what works for you. And if it doesn't necessarily work, you can always just change it and move things around, which is what I did with my broth. So this is the broth that I had canned over Thanksgiving and the turkey. And so it wasn't working right there. And I knew that I'm not going to pull from that as much as I would pull from some other stuff. So I wanted to leave that main shelf for things that I'm going to use often. This is the next day, and it's actually the nighttime because after I finished making the jelly, I had some things I had to take care of. I had to go grocery shopping, and then when I came home, it was time for dinner and time to make dinner for the family. So that kind of took up the rest of that day. And then the next day, I had to take my siblings back to their dad's house, and that kind of took up a lot of my day. Actually got to sleep in, which was really nice, but it kind of threw off my day a little bit. So this is actually the evening time. It's around like 8:30 after my kids had gone to bed, and I was just trying to get as much done as I could and finish up this project so that I could relax and have clean counters. I left the jelly project with a clean kitchen and then it kind of just got demolished with all of the stuff from the pantry, which is fine and messes can be cleaned up and things can be organized and put away. But I really just wanted to be done with this project. Last time we organized my pantry was at my old apartment, and so when I was organizing my last pantry, I had a bunch of containers of cashews for no apparent reason. It was mostly just the fact that it was so unorganized and cluttered that I couldn't see what I had, and so I kept going and buying the same thing because I was like, oh, we must be out because I can't find it. But it wasn't that, it was just that I couldn't see it because it was so disorganized. So that's really what I'm trying to get away from here at this place. And I think I'm doing a pretty good job considering all of the things that I have going on in life. And I am really proud of what we got done here today in this pantry area. One of the biggest things that I did to make a difference in the pantry is consolidate a lot of things. If something was in a giant box and it was almost gone, I tried to put it in a smaller container so that it would stay more easily manageable. If I still had the container or the packaging and I was able to see the Best By date, I took one of those dissolvable labels and I put it on the jar or container that I used and then wrote on it so that I knew what the expiration date was. Most of this stuff is dry goods and doesn't expire for a very long time though. The bottom of it was really, really dirty. This hadn't been cleaned since we moved in, so this is kind of like my dog's water bowl and everything is down there, and it was really gross. There was a lot of nasty stuff down here, and I kind of did the best I could because I didn't have very good lighting, and it was really late, and I was pretty tired, so I did the best I could cleaning this out. And then I just put everything back, and this is kind of what it looks like. It's pretty, it looks pretty good to me, and I'm actually really proud of it. I think I did a pretty good job, and I'm excited to get to some other projects that I have on the list. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out with me and being so kind. And I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you very, very soon.